Well, good afternoon. We'll go ahead and kick off the September meeting of the Murfreesboro Sports Authority, and would ask if there's any public comment today on the agenda items. Nobody signed up? No.
Hi, how are you?
We'll see none. We'll close the public comment period. Item number 2 is the approval of the minutes. You should have in your packet attachment number 1. If everyone has reviewed the minutes and would like to make a motion to approve, we'll entertain one.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I put a
All
summary.
right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Adams?
Here.
Mr. Parsley?
Here.
It's after the first blue.
Ms. Polk?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Or voting. Yes.
Chair Leacher?
Yes.
I'll change mine to approve.
Are we supposed to call the roll for attendance, or are we good? Okay. Everybody's here. Okay. The next item on the agenda, which is really the meat of the agenda for this meeting, is item number 3, the review of the consultant submittals. So I think in the last week or so, Mr. Tyndall has sent that out to everyone, and hopefully everybody's had a chance to review those. And what we want to do is I'll turn it over to Craig to just make any comments, and then we can deliberate after that and figure out what direction we want to go in. So, Craig, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, first thing is maybe some procedurals. We've gone through the city's purchasing department, so we'll need to get a score sheet back from folks just so we can fill out our software and close out the RFP. So if people could take just a real quick chance and go through the score sheet, which I printed another copy and put it out there on your in front of you so that you could have that out, and then we can complete our software. I will say, and Pete and I were talking a little bit before the meeting, but everybody who submitted is perfectly capable of doing the work. One of the criteria that we asked for was that they had worked in Tennessee, and the reason for that is kind of familiarity with the market and some things that are going on in this community, in this state anyway. So only one of the respondents responded positively in that area. So I think that's important. I'll disclose that I worked with one of the respondents, Donegal Associates, Mike Humes, in a past life. We worked together for a sports team, and he was the head of sponsorships. So I know Mike pretty well. I'm happy to tell you what I know about Mike. He also came, he's in Memphis, and we asked him to come up and take a look at our facilities up here and see what he thought as far as sponsorships. And that was the preliminary information that you got with your notebooks with the committee in the beginning. The other ones, I don't know. I have talked on the phone with one of the other ones, SSEC. Had a really good conversation with them. I think that they're pretty good. They are in New Jersey. They haven't done much in Tennessee. The other one that has done work, but it might have been SSEC. I'll have to look at the summary page. Did some work with the Tennessee State Soccer Association, TSSA, who happens to be one of our prime tenants in Siegel Soccer, which is one of the focuses that we'll probably have when we start the process. So we would have to manage that relationship if we decided to go to SSEC and see if there were any conflicts in there with respect to what they're doing with TSSA. So that might be one thing to consider if they're in the running. Superlative, about 3 or 4 years ago, came out and did a presentation to me, and I can't remember who else was there from the city, talking generally about, we didn't have this process, we didn't envision this process at that point in time, but they just generally did a presentation, and very competent people have done a lot of that. The only drawback with them is it looks like they're going to subcontract out some of the work to a smaller firm out of Denver, and I'm not sure how that would work, but I'm sure it would probably work fine. I think they're going to do the preliminary study part, and then later at probably Superlative, I would imagine, would do more of the implementation of the sponsorships. But we can talk more with them about that. I have no insight on IEG. Instigo looks like an individual who had some professional sports experience, not a huge amount in sponsorships for municipalities at this point in time. It looks like he's kind of getting started in the business, which is fine. Like I said, all of them have enough experience to do exactly what we're asking them to do. So not a real drawback, but just a consideration for, I guess it's Instigo is how you'd say it. So those are my thoughts in looking through it. This is a qualification-based process. So we didn't ask for price. A couple of them disclosed what they anticipate a price would be. So the fact that pricing wasn't disclosed is not a drawback at all. First step would be to identify who we want to go with, and then we'll, with the city's legal department, negotiate a contract, bring that back to the board, hopefully in about a 30-day period of time, and have the board approve that contract. In the meantime, we'll keep council up to date so that city council knows, because the city will be funding the Sports Authority until revenue is generated, and then they'll recoup what they funded going forward. And it'll have its own revenue stream at that point. So, but that's the process that we anticipate. So, happy to entertain the discussion amongst the board members and who they think that would be best for the board to move forward with, and for us to move forward with in discussing a contract.
So just to recap the procedures again, I guess it would be the goal today to try to identify one single company to go ahead and talk for, have you and the staff talk further with, and then you would negotiate again the pricing and everything that they would do and all the details, and then enter into some memorandum of understanding at least initially, and then you take this to the council for approval, and then obviously you would have a contract.
Yeah, the authority can do the contract without council approval. We'll inform council, so we'll keep them up to date and make sure that they understand and where council's heading. If they have any objections, obviously we'd want to express that. But if they're okay going forward, then this board can approve.
Would you come back to us with it? Okay.
Yeah, I'd come back with it. If there any objections were voiced, I'd come back. But
gotcha.
This is all anticipated in what we would do. I don't think our pricing is going to be anywhere near a level that would cause any concern for the city as far as their contracts. Some of this will be commission-based, which Pete and I talked about as well, which is an advantage because their performance is important and important to their monetary considerations, so it's a bit of incentive.
Okay. Does anybody have any thoughts? I mean, I can lead off. I just kind of I too had to fill out the proper form, but I just did a ranking, if it would help to begin discussion. I did all 5 of them. I had Donegal Associates, the group out of Memphis, first. I had Superlative number 2. I had SSEC as 3, Instigo 4, and then I had IEG 5. And I guess one of the main reasons I ranked Donegal high is just number one. I used to live in West Tennessee, lived in Memphis, and I know some of the venues that they have indeed gone out. In particular, First Horizon has a massive soccer complex, and I think that's certainly one of the signature things. I think from what I read and understand, they did that. So, and I think there's also a lot of benefit, really, of having at least a Tennessee-based firm that knows all the different, because the soccer world and the other sports here are, they're fairly, it's a small family, if you will, based on who they know and who the different sponsors that are likely to be addressed. And so anyhow, that's how I ranked them. I did give, I think Superlative worked for the University of Tennessee a little bit.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons I kind of ranked them next to the top there. So, and the other ones, again, I put SSEC number 3 because I work with the Soccer Association. But at the end of the day, I think it's important to have somebody that is, to me, to have somebody at least within a 2 or 3 hour drive or closer to be able to do the things that we need to do to be successful. So those are my 2 cents. Does anybody else have any?
I went the same with the Donegal. I mean, to me, I mean, their body of work, as well as their proximity, I just think makes them by far the leading candidate. I had SSEC and Superlative behind them, with the other 2, IEG and Instago at the bottom. But Donegal way up there. I think it's a huge advantage and pro to already for you to have some knowledge of one of their key players. I don't think that that's a negative. I appreciate you disclosing that, but I understand that's the world we live in. But to me, that is that's a great thing because you already have rapport, and it's not just some submission on a piece of paper. So that's wonderful. I know we didn't ask for people to submit financials or proposed fees for it. You know, it is as you know, if your gut feeling is none of these are going to come in outside the parameter of what the city would approve, that's great. But I mean, we had a wide, I mean, the 2 that came in at very different numbers. So that just kind of made my wheels turn a little bit about just what are we signing up for, but if you feel like that everything will be within reason that the city would approve.
Yeah, the more standard arrangement was the upfront fee for the work that they would do in the study in getting the market and identifying the market players, and then the commission is usually the implementation, and that's the more standard. And the other one that you saw, which was a little different, was just a flat fee.
Right.
And that's, in my experience, it's a bit more unusual in the municipal for municipal marketing and sponsorships and such.
I wrote down 3 areas that I think we should consider, and you guys have already mentioned 2 of them. One, local knowledge, and so Donegal being close in Memphis makes a lot of sense for that. Is there a concern over use of subcontractors for a couple things? 1, efficiency. 2, added cost, more people pulling out of that pie. Is it going to increase the cost? And the third would be, you know, it looks like every one of these companies could do a good job, but the difference between projected revenue and cost is something that I would love to have in this. I know we weren't asking for a proposal, but at least a breakdown of, hey, we do X amount for discovery, which should be fairly easy to get, plus we do 7% on, you know, gross sponsorship or something like that. Without knowing how some of these are structured, for me, it's kind of hard to rank them outside of just these guys are local and everyone's packet looks good. For me personally, the use of contracted subs or subcontractors kind of strikes me as a little funny. Like, it seems like you lose control a little bit more and more as it goes down that line. So for me, someone who doesn't use a subcontractor would be higher on the list. And then any kind of indication of how they price, not what the price is going to be, but how they price it would be helpful. Otherwise, it's, hey, you look like you could do it. And then if we choose one, and let's say the negotiation doesn't work out, or the prices are higher, or the cost is higher than we think, then we have to start over and go to another one and then another one. Just having a breakdown of how they price would be helpful, I think.
Are you talking about pricing their services or how they price the market and what they feel they would create in the revenue?
Well, the first one would be how they, not necessarily what the price is, but how they price it. So what percentage are they looking for out of the sponsorship dollars? And then I know that they might not be able to do the price, like what they think the value is of each property without doing the research.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I can understand that for sure, but just a breakdown of we charge upfront fee, sure, that's going to be what it is, and then what is the percentage?
Yeah.
You know, without knowing what the percentage is, it's hard to evaluate one against the other, because one could be 5%, one could be 15%, and we don't know that while we're going through this qualification process. But I think I'm in agreement with you guys that Donegal just being so close and then you having a relationship with them seems like a good front runner, but it would be nice to know the structure of their pricing, not necessarily what it's going to be.
Well, I can tell you from my perspective, I haven't had a chance to do the evaluations, so I'm going to lean on folks here. So far, based on what you've said so far, I don't have any opposition to how you would have evaluated them, especially when someone being local. But I do like your points, because I'd like to know that as well, as far as pricing.
Yeah, I would tell you, so usually what you break down on sponsorships generally, and we're not selling like suites or anything like that, but sponsorships are usually one aspect of it. Sometimes you'll see a break in how much the percentage is based on how many dollars. So, $1 million might be a lower percentage than a smaller one. Naming rights, and I don't know if we have a naming rights deal out there, we'll have to talk about them. But naming rights generally are longer term and they take more work and so those are generally a higher percentage. So, we could talk, if we had two, we could talk to them and see how they would bounce off each other. I think, we saw in one of the proposals, it's a 10-15 split between sponsorships and naming rights. I thought that was not unusual from the different things that I saw. We could see if there's any more granularity in how they would bring that up. So I don't know if we're going to be in a price range where we would have a break point where their percentages would actually drop off if we're going to be selling anything that high dollar.
Yeah, I think it would be prudent to maybe choose two today instead of just one.
Yeah.
And then, unless it's like an insane amount of work for you and your team,
No.
to do an RFP to those top two and then compare them. Not only does it give us a little bit more insight, it gives us a little leverage to negotiate if we have one that we really like, but it maybe is a little higher percentage or higher cost. And then also, are they pricing it on the total value of that sale? Say it's a 10-year naming right deal. Are we paying them all of that up front? Are we paying it as it renews each year? Like, some of those details I think would be important to know.
Yeah. Right.
I might be getting ahead of where we're at, but
you have to pay it over time because naming rights do come and go. Companies come and go.
Sure.
And so you see naming rights change on arenas all the time, and so you don't have to recoup
there's a breach of contract or
you don't have to
something goes out of
recoup
business.
your commission that you spent out for that. So it's generally paid out over time just because that usually happens. Now, a lot of times they'll pay a pretty good premium to get it up right off the bat, and so that percentage is negotiated. I don't know if we'll have any of those two. We don't have an arena to deal with on that, but those deals can be pretty interesting.
What's the relationship with the Tennessee State Soccer Association in Siegel Park?
I'm having to remember because there was a couple different ways that was going to work out. The way it's worked out now is that they are prime tenants, so they get priority in scheduling. They get priority in scheduling tournaments and other activities over any other entity that comes in, because they will schedule tournaments out there for non-TSSA soccer events. But if TSSA has something, then they can hold that date before any others. Other than that, we had agreed to build them an office building out around Siegel, and that discussion is still ongoing because their headquarters is relocated here. COVID set that off. They found other space. There's not a real rush for it, but they would like a couple thousand square feet. They're not a huge organization, as most of those governing bodies are, but they'd like to have a couple thousand square feet of offices out there. There's different ways that we can handle that. But that's really our relationship now. When they bring tournaments in and where they do sponsorships, if they bring tournaments in, then they're selling off their own sponsorships, and they're allowed to keep that revenue. I can't remember. Nate was going to be here. Unfortunately, he has a sick kid and a wife that's traveling, so he has to be at home. He knows a lot more detail about that, and I can get more detail from Nate on that, but I think I don't think we split sponsorships with them right now. They pay rental when they come in, and they get a break on the rental.
Would our targets and the Soccer Association's targets be the same?
They could be. We'd also be competing somewhat with the university, who's hired a firm to also do marketing on their sports facilities. So we do have some competition out there.
What firm did they go with, you know?
I didn't recognize the name. I don't know who they went, and they may be somebody that specializes in the university world. I'm not sure. Yeah.
I ranked mine, Donegal first and then Superlative second. The conflict of interest for SEC with the Siegel Soccer Park raised some concerns with me because I feel that there will be some dual, I guess, it'd be tough for them to, if we're going after Dix and they're also going after Dix, you know, who wins, right? And so I don't know that I want to be put in that situation. Also agree with Adam about getting additional information, or Pete, excuse me, additional information as far as pricing goes and having two to consider at the next stage.
One thing I did like about Superlative is it looks like they have on their relevant projects several projects that are very close to what we're looking at.
Municipalities.
I like that a lot with Superlative. I didn't see a lot of that in some of the other ones. I could have overlooked them, but I think there's a big difference between a municipal soccer field and a NBA basketball arena. Even though it's probably a similar discipline, it's just the scale of it is much different. And in my experience, when organizations are used to dealing with big corporate organizations and have to step down, they lose touch with mid-market type of business who could do the 100,000 and not looking for the 10 million, right? So I think that there's a touch that you have to work with a small or mid-market business that is a little bit different skill set than a large corporate, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Working with a large corporate is different than working with a mid-market. So I do like the Superlative had a lot of that experience. It's similar to what we're looking at.
Well, the city of Raleigh, North Carolina, I know is growing much like Murfreesboro. And with them to be on this list, they've got a contract with completion date of March 2026. I liked probably a call to their Parks and Rec department to see what their experience has been like so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who had Raleigh there, Ben?
Superlative.
Okay. Must have missed that.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
Well, from the sounds of things, it looks like Donegal and Superlative are pretty much 1-2 on everybody's list. Is that accurate? And we want to go with two firms to gather some more information from, I think. Also, we would need if it's appropriate to make a motion or if we want to have more discussion, don't get me wrong,
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll take direction from the board.
Okay.
I'm with Ben on the conflict of interest with the SSEC. It's a little bit, they might know soccer, which is good, but you don't want to get in that position.
And that's one of our target areas, right, for
Yeah.
sponsorship placement. And I don't want to be competing against our tenant.
Yeah.
Craig, do you have a thought on who you and your team would work the best with? I mean, when it comes down to it, we come to a meeting once a month, but you guys are going to be in constant contact. Do you have a preference?
Well, that's hard. I know Mike. So, I pick up the phone and call him, and I have, when something happens in Memphis, I call Mike. And he's well plugged in out there, so he knows a lot of things. Superlative, I've met the guys because, like I said, they came out and did a presentation, but I don't know them. They seem perfectly amenable people. I think I can work with them. It wouldn't be a real issue. I'm sure Nate could. And we could easily go back to them both and say, look, tell us what your contractual prices are. Let's take a look at it. And if we see anything in there, ask about their flexibility and how they would work that. And I think taking Ben's suggestion and calling Raleigh, that would be pretty good. I think we'd probably, in fairness, call the Leftwich tennis folks for Mike and get feedback on that, because that was his big project. There's quite a story to that. That was huge success and similar to Adams out here. So,
And the Memphis Sports Event Center is amazing.
Yeah.
Been in it, and it is very, very nice, high quality, right down from Christian Brothers, right, it's back door to what I call the Liberty Bowl, but it's not the Liberty Bowl anymore. But it is top notch. I mean, basketball, each basketball court turns into a volleyball court. I mean, yeah. So I'd love for something like that to be in Murfreesboro.
Well, I mean, Mike actually, about a year ago, suggested that very thing. So I wouldn't put it off as an impossibility, something to discuss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But just his product is, or whatever they did there was really good.
All right, what's the will of the,
If we choose to have an RFP on, is that,
Yeah, we probably wouldn't do a full-blown RFP. I just don't want to get tangled into the purchasing process too much. But we would figure out the right process to use just to get pricing out of it. And with an RFQ, actually, your next step is to go off to pricing. So we may just go out and talk to them. I'll talk with the city attorney and make sure we're doing it correctly, so we don't have to back up and do it again.
sure.
One's commission, one's, or both commission, or both flat fee, or do we know?
I think, if I remember right, Superlative was one of the ones that put in their structure. I could be wrong.
I don't remember seeing it.
Maybe not.
No, it was, Instago had a $66,000 retainer plus 10 on sponsorships and 12 on.
And that's pretty typical. The rest of them they just didn't put it in, and we didn't add it because RFQs aren't fee-based, they're qualifications-based. But we'll talk to Mike, he's got a standard process, and I will tell you, it's going to be pretty much that type of situation, but we'll see what Superlative has. And Superlative is the one with the subcontractor, so, that might add a complication in there that we'll need to see.
Have you seen that be an issue, or, I mean?
Not other than the points that you raised. It does bring in an outside party that closely affiliated, but it is a separate entity, and so we'll have to see what they intend.
And definitely probably a good question for the city of Raleigh on that.
Yeah.
Like how that
Played out.
aspect shook out.
Yeah, I mean, if they divide the process up neatly, you're going to do the studies and bring us back and everything, and then we'll do the implementation and the sales, then, it could be successful. There wouldn't be a big problem. We'll have to see how their fee structure would work on something like that.
but Craig, assuming we choose to today, is it a big deal to do just an interview to let the authority asking questions of the group? Would Code just do a Zoom or something, or?
Oh, yeah, that's another alternative, is that we
Okay.
can set up an interview.
Might be good, just so.
Yeah.
That'd be great, okay.
Yeah, we can set up, we'll get a date here for the next meeting and clear it with both parties, and then we could do a Zoom interview with them.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be good.
What's the
Do
will
we
of
need to
the,
each go through our ranking, or how do you want to do that?
You can just fill it, you don't have to do it tonight. I mean, if I can get it back in the next few days, that would be excellent. Then I'll
About that?
have them input it in we'll satisfy the procedure. We're going to have the procedure.
all right, any more discussion before, hopefully somebody makes a motion?
What are we motioning on?
Well, we need to, I think if it's the will of the authority to suggest or make a motion for two firms to be interviewed, as well as some further vetting on pricing and so forth, I think that would be what Craig and the city staff would need to move forward. So if anyone's inclined to do that.
I'll make a motion that we select two based off of our rankings to explore further. Also, to have a Zoom call with those two
Okay.
and to request fee structure on how they price their services. That would be my motion.
Okay.
Do you want to add to your motion of two firms that you'd like to?
My two firms were, I believe, Donegal number one and Superlative number two. That would be my choice.
Would you want to add that to your motion?
I can, yes.
Great.
I'll add that to my motion, Paul.
All right.
The legal scholar, Ben might have to help us with that.
Nor am I. I just wanted to, do that. But, so we have a motion as described, and we have a second by Robert. Any more discussion? All right, would you call the roll, please, Melanie?
Mr. Adams? Mr. Parsley?
Approve.
Ms. Polk?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
Chair Litter?
Yes. All right. I think it's a good plan. Thank you.
Good. So just to be clear, though, on the Zoom call, this body has to be physically here. Can't do meetings
Correct.
electronically, but we'll just do the Zoom for the individuals.
Correct.
So,
All right. Item number 4, if you'll look, the development of an authority budget. And I assume you're going to be talking our payroll for the
We're gonna-
committee.
Yeah, we'll table that until I get a chance to talk some more with Aaron. We got kind of bottled up and didn't get a chance, or I did anyway.
Okay.
Didn't get a chance to do that, so if we could table that item.
Okay, the issue is tabled, or the agenda item is tabled. All right, number 5, other business. Any other business to come before the Sports Authority today? All right, the next agenda item is future meetings.
We have a calendar, and like I said, I think we'll work with the 2 individuals, probably would be the best way to go, and then incorporate it into the calendar, trying to stick to our 4 o'clock afternoon timeframe, if that works for everybody. So why don't we kind of canvass everybody, particularly since we don't have 2 board members here, and get some dates and try and triangulate something in the maybe mid to late November timeframe or even early December. We'll try and do it here. If I have in my hand the calendar for the airport.
What are the dates that are open? Maybe that'll help.
It's pretty tight. Well, let's see. We'll start. We have the 11th, the 13th, and 15th of November, the 20th and 23rd. And Chad, you said Thanksgiving's the 28th, right? So that week of Thanksgiving, there's a couple days open, but that's generally pretty tough.
So 13th works for me in November. Does that work for anybody else that has their calendar in front of them?
Works for me.
No, it does not work for me. Excuse me.
No, I'm
And we should, if we could, get a couple of dates that works for everybody, that would be, then we can check with our other board members and with the interviewees.
20th was one.
20th was one.
20th works.
I'm good with that.
4 o'clock? Yeah, I can do that.
20th is good with me.
20th. And then if we go to December, that, if we can't get the 20th and people aren't able to make that one, then first week of December, the 2nd and the 5th. The 2nd is a Monday, the 5th is a Thursday.
I can do the 5th at 4. Can't do Monday.
I can do the 5th.
I can do the 5th.
I can do the 5th.
Okay, we'll try for the 20th. If we can't, we'll try for the 5th. And if we can't do that, then we'll just start throwing dates out and trying to get everybody lined up.
At the city council meeting, we'll just do that.
All right. Well, there are no further agenda items other than adjournment. So if anybody else has anything, speak now. But thank you for your time, and we are adjourned. Pardon.